Sure, we can say that, in the modeling industry, it is based on your looks. But if we're talking about other job opportunities like accounting, and we say I didn't get the job because I think that they didn't think I was pretty enough, I don't think that's the reason. Now, will somebody look at you differently because you're prettier? Sure. But if you're looking at it as an excuse to be like, I didn't make it because I don't think I was pretty, I didn't think that they thought I was pretty, I don't think that's the reason. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Adriana, welcome, and today I'm going to be showing I'm going to be reacting to another TikTok. So if you like these types of videos, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. And also you can follow me on my Instagram where I post lots of fun things, updates, and alpha inspiration. So go ahead and follow me there and let's get started. Okay, so I have seen this like once or twice before, but I want to break down what her TikTok is talking about. And basically this has to do once again with this feeling of being valued solely because of your looks. So has to do with pretty privilege and things like that. I think I have a very unpopular opinion when it comes to pretty privilege because, let's be honest, when it comes to pretty privilege, it's very, 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 very subjective. It's very often compared to something like rich privilege. Now, the very difference is that with rich privilege, it can be measured. There's a certain threshold that comes with rich privilege. And basically, I think it's important to also define what it means. First of all, privilege. Let's Google this bad boy. Google says that privilege is defined as a special right, advantage, or immunity granted or available only to a particular person or group. That's the first definition. So with that definition of privilege, it's like, okay, we can see that somebody who doesn't possess this advantage or this honor or this special right that somebody has is privileged in that sense. So if we're going to go by that definition and then we want to talk about what pretty privilege is, then by definition it's somebody who's probably, if we're going to put numerical value just to make it a little bit more measurable, somebody who's like 8, 9, and 10 on the scale of 1 to 10, they would be somebody who would be experiencing this privilege, correct? So if we go with that premise, then they are seen as really, the top of the top when it comes to their physical appearance. And we should be seeing that they are receiving something more than the usual person or the normal or the regular person would not get. Another way that most people define pretty privilege is through the halo effect. So if you guys aren't familiar, it's basically, looking at somebody who you would deem as attractive and who's perceived as attractive. And so because they are attractive, you immediately assume that they also have very amicable traits without even knowing that person. So keeping that definition in mind and remembering the halo effect, I'm going to go on that premise as I'm going to look and react at her TikTok.
Something I hate about myself that I'm sure a lot of people can relate to, women can relate to, is nothing about myself feels valid or worthy.
So nothing about myself feels valid or worthy. And it's just the words that she uses here are very, very strong. Like, something that I hate about myself is that she doesn't feel valid, she doesn't feel worthy if she is not pretty enough, or she doesn't see herself as pretty enough, or if she doesn't think she's as pretty as society thinks.
Something I hate about myself that I'm sure a lot of people can relate to, women can relate to, is nothing about myself feels valid or worthy if I'm not pretty. Like, I'm always just as funny, I'm always just as smart, I'm always just as nice and likable, but if I look ugly, I don't care. I can't make videos, I can't make content. It feels like nothing I say holds any weight if I look ugly.
Now here's the problem, and I completely understand this as a woman, that when it comes to our self-esteem and our insecurities, it's something that we are fighting every day. But that doesn't mean that it's always society's fault that we feel this way. And this is why I think pretty privilege and having like this coined term can also affect the way that we do things, the way that we navigate around the world. And so keeping that in mind, it's important to know like where this construct comes from. And sometimes when we put a label on like certain advantages, we start to actually use it as a reason why we're not able to do something. We start using it as an excuse. We start using it as a reason as to why we're not achieving the things that we want. So for example, if I were to look at, I'm just gonna say Victoria's Secret model, because at one point they were the epitome of beauty, especially when I was growing up. Like the Victoria's Secret fashion models, especially the fashion shows, like every year people would sit and watch with their like popcorn and junk food and be like, I wish I had a body like that. I wish my face looked like that. So I understand as a woman that this is a constant battle that we face. However, what I'm starting to observe nowadays too is that we are starting to use that as a way to give ourselves an excuse as to why we're not achieving certain things, or as to why we cannot reach a certain place. But I think it's also important to note that there are many factors as to how a person gets to a point of success. Like models, for example, they also have to work hard to get there. And if we're going by this definition of privilege, then by default, just by being an 8, 9, or 10, by default, you should have this access to this certain success that we look at. And so what I'm saying is, for example, we see a Victoria's Secret model, right? We think, oh, she can get there. She gets paid just for looking pretty. But we also know that there are a lot of people that exist that aren't models, that have the same features as these Victoria's Secret models. So by default, on that definition of pretty privilege, they should have access to that. But they don't necessarily have that access. Now, my main point is, we cannot say that it's just because somebody's pretty that they made it there, or that because I'm not pretty enough, I didn't make it there. There's a lot of varying factors. For example, do you have connections? That's a huge thing, especially in the entertainment business. Number 2, what talent do you bring to the table? Because we look at modeling and we think that it's so easy. It's really not. I've never been a model, but I've seen some behind the scenes. How you look is important, but it's not everything, because image and looking good can be two different things in the entertainment industry. Another thing to also take into account is, finances. Finances is a big deal as well, because somebody from the other side of the world who grew up in a more rural area, let's say, or like growing up without having anything, wouldn't have the same access to somebody who has more finances. And that's where the whole rich privilege comes from. But that doesn't mean that they cannot make it. But I wouldn't say that just from them being pretty, they would have straight access to being able to become a model. Because when you look at model agencies, they get tons of girls who have those characteristics, but they don't make it to the top, or they don't even make, some of them don't even make livable income, or just enough to even make it for next month. It's not as easy as people think. And so when people say pretty privilege, this is the first thing that comes to our mind, is that, oh, because so and so is so pretty, they can earn this much money, they can get more dates than the next, which to an extent, yes, but to take it all the way there and saying this is the very thing or the only thing that will get them there is not quite correct. And so this feeling of not being valid or worthy enough is exactly that. It's a feeling. The thing is, when we feel inadequate about something, and even more so when we look at other people who are doing well, we see that somebody has the traits that we don't have, whether it's in beauty or in intelligence or in finances, whatever it is, we tend to look at those people through this lens of inadequacy. And because of that, we start to see all our faults. We start seeing all of the things that we cannot do instead of focusing on the strengths that we do have. When we start getting to this point where we let it stop us from doing the things that we want to do, and then we start to use that as an excuse, we develop this attitude of losing by default. Losing by default. So every single time we fail at something, instead of looking at what could have gone wrong to fix it, we start looking at it as like, oh, I didn't make it because I wasn't pretty enough. Which in some cases, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, that could be true, but in most cases it's because of other factors. Sure, we can say that, in the modeling industry, it is based on your looks. But if we're talking about other job opportunities like accounting, and we say I didn't get the job because I think that they didn't think I was pretty enough, I don't think that's the reason. Now, will somebody look at you differently because you're prettier? Sure. But if you're looking at it as an excuse to be like, I didn't make it because I don't think I was pretty, or I didn't think that they thought I was pretty, I don't think that's the reason. Maybe you just didn't articulate yourself well enough, or maybe it really showed that you had no experience when it came to accounting, or you just weren't the right fit. Like, why can't that be the reason? Okay, I'm just gonna rewind that for a second to hear the next part.
And the other fucked up thing is, you guys validate that. Because when I look ugly and I say my little shit I say, no one cares. And when I look pretty and say the same exact shit, everybody's all, oh my god, we love you, we love you. Being pretty.
Okay, so she argues that when she says the same thing, it's different from when she looks good versus when she doesn't put as much effort into her looks. I mean, that's very debatable. It really depends on what you're saying, also what captions you have with your pictures. And if most of your followers are men, yeah, chances are you're gonna get more engagement on the more dressed up version of you. They're just visual creatures. It's normal. But if most of your followers are female and they expect that most of your content is about, like, let's say social media versus reality, or your type of content is more on like exposing what's photoshopped, what's not, then you'll actually get a lot of engagement in pictures that are less made up. I'm talking like in editing wise, or even makeup wise, or even fashion wise.
It should not be a prerequisite to being a human being as a woman. But why does it feel like that though?
I completely get her point in that it shouldn't be, but it does feel like it, because as a woman, every woman knows this, our looks are important. I'm not even gonna front. It's important, but that doesn't mean that you have to be an 8, 9, or 10. Like, I think it's just, when we think we have to be pretty, we think we have to be a Victoria's Secret model. We have to look like the Kardashians. We have to look like Ariana Grande or whoever. But that's not the case. We should look presentable. We should look healthy. Yes, when I say healthy, I mean like we should get to the gym, be the best version of ourselves in that sense. That's not to say that you cannot navigate through it, and that's not to say that you cannot do the things that you're passionate about or succeed in what you want to succeed in. But we should find our place in the world, that's for sure. Like me, as a 5'2" woman, I know that I'm not gonna make it in the modeling world, just simply for the fact that I'm too short and I don't have the features of a model. And that's okay. That doesn't mean I cannot post content on YouTube, that I cannot post content on Instagram. Although yes, it's very easy to compare myself with others and be like, oh crap, I'm not as pretty as this person, but it shouldn't stop me from doing what I want to do. Not everything that we do is just based on our beauty, our outward beauty, but here too and here. Does it play a role? Absolutely. Is it the only factor that actually drives us forward? No, it's not. Is it enough for us to take us all the way when it comes to success in our relationships, in our careers, in our life in general? No. Will it open the door for you? Yes. There are just some things that we have to reprogram in our brain to not always blame the external factors or how things work around in society. Anyway, that was everything. I hope that you guys liked it. Let me know in the comments down below, what do you guys think about pretty privilege? Do you guys think that it's something that's affecting us because of how we think about it, because of our perception of it? Or do you really think that it's because of how society paints the value of a woman? Anyway, let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section, and I'll see you guys on the next one.